Okay, yes, thank you for joining us for our Regional Transit Development Plan Public Meeting number 2. I am Amy Martin, and I'm with the Regional Commission. Um, I'm the Valdosta Lowndes MPO Transportation Director, and we have Torrance Weaver and also Megan Fowler here with us from the Southern Georgia Regional Commission. Megan Fowler is the Transit Director, and Torrance Weaver is a Transportation Planner. And we have Blue Cypress, who's going to introduce themselves. I ask that you just tune in with us and give us any feedback that you have, and ask questions so that we can get all the feedback that we need to incorporate this into this amazing plan. And I turn it over to you, Amanda.
All right. Well, thank you, Amy, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, or if you're watching the recording, I'm hopefully getting the same content that folks that are attending live. We do have a lot to cover in the next hour. You're seeing the agenda on the screen, but this is an interactive meeting. We are going to be asking for your feedback largely through a tool, a polling tool, which we'll get to in a moment. But before we move on, I do want to introduce the rest of our team. As Amy mentioned, I'm Amanda Hatton with Blue Cypress Consulting. I'm managing the project in close coordination with Amy as Southern Georgia Regional Commission project manager. I'm joined tonight by a couple other key members of the consulting team. Ansley Belton, also with Blue Cypress. She'll be walking through some of our technical analysis, and then Billy Bachman with spatial plans. He'll be walking through alternatives discussion and facilitating getting feedback from community members later in the meeting. But our main goals for tonight are to build awareness about the Regional Transit Development Plan, why we're working on this plan, why it matters, how it impacts community members in the Southern Georgia region. We're also collecting input from you all, and we want to also introduce and launch the final community survey, which is a really important tool for collecting input during the meeting. Before we move on to the next slide, I also want to highlight that we do have some partners on today. I want to thank Georgia Department of Transportation, both Jonathan McLeod and Mary Flatt for joining us, as well as Larry Ogden with City of Valdosta. And I noted that Scott Corson also with SGRC, the Area Agency on Aging, is on as well. Some housekeeping for our meeting. We have everyone muted. We ask that you stay muted throughout the meeting. If you do have a question, please raise your hand. You can use the other reactions as well to let us know how you're feeling about what we're talking about. We do ask that you put any questions or comments in the chat. When we get to the polling, which we'll be using for Mentimeter, if for some reason it's not working on your end, you can just put your response in the chat. You can also reach out to us in the chat, and we can try to help you as we move through the meeting. I will remind folks, please be respectful of neighbors, community members. If someone is bringing up topics that are unrelated, we'll reserve the right to remove you from the meeting. We don't anticipate that being a concern tonight, but just a reminder that, to be courteous to others on. With that said, we're going to test out our polling tool. Again, getting input from the public is really important to our planning effort. We're using a tool called Mentimeter. You can access it using your phone and taking a picture of the QR code. You can also type the address menti.com into your browser, or again on your phone or tablet or your computer if you're joining us that way, and type in the code. So it looks like we've got a few folks that have gotten in. And Ansley, maybe you could also put that in the chat, menti.com, to make it easy. So our first question was just trying to understand who is with us tonight, which county you represent in the Southern Georgia region, or if you're from outside the region and joining tonight, that's perfectly fine. We want to hear from you too. Please type that in. All right. Looks like we've got a couple of folks from Lowndes and Coffee County also represented. Our next question, we're just trying to understand if people have used the transit within the region. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but got options for you've used SGRC transit, you use Valdosta On Demand, and you can select more than one, or you haven't used either of the public transit services currently in the region. Okay. So it looks like we do have a little experience with STRC Transit, and then actually using the service. A couple of folks have not yet done so. All right. Thank you all for helping us get a sense of who's in the meeting. We do want to give a quick overview of the project. If you've attended our previous public meeting or been to our website, hopefully this is a refresher. We want to remind everyone that Southern Georgia Regional Commission already has a regional transit development plan. Your 18-county region has actually been a leader in this within our state. That plan was developed in 2019. It has been 5 years. So a good solid planning practice is every 5 years to update your planning document to account for successes and accomplishments, revisit goals, and plan for the next period. Since 2019, you have also implemented SGRC Transit, Valdosta On Demand has been put into place, and the state of Georgia has completed its first statewide transit plan. And as a part of that work, the state has been leading regional transit development plans throughout the region. So this plan update, this regional transit development plan is taking into account that previous work that the region has done in transit planning, the current services you have in place, and also aligning with the state planning efforts. In terms of outcomes of the plan, the reason we're planning at a regional level, largely to build collaboration and efficiencies of scale. And through this regional collaboration, we can provide more services more efficiently and ultimately achieve both a regional goal of providing public transit access to all community members, but also that's a statewide goal as well, as to make sure everyone in the state of Georgia has access to public transit. You're seeing on the screen key components of the plan. We have been busy working on all the ones on the left. Those are all largely complete. We're going to be talking a little bit about the public involvement and visioning and goals here in a couple minutes. But we have been focused most recently and as a part of tonight and the next few weeks of collecting input on the needs assessment and analysis, as well as alternatives development, and which will ultimately inform the recommendations. And so you'll hear Billy focusing on our progress in that area and working to get a little feedback from those that are attending at today's meeting. Our last step in the plan after we get through this technical work and collecting some additional public input is to really lay out the recommendations and build the implementation plan as we plan for the plan finalization and adoption. On this screen, you're seeing all the things I just talked about in a schedule format. And this is a multi-month planning process. We started in September of 2024. We are looking for adoption of the plan to happen in September. And so here we are in mid-April. Like I mentioned, the public input period will be going through into early May, and then we're working on refining the feedback into recommendations and an implementation plan. And that'll go through a review process, and then we'll be opening up a final public review period before the plan is finalized and considered for adoption by the Regional Council in August. So we've got a live input period now, and then we'll be bringing the plan back for public review for 30 days late summer of this year. Of course, community input has been a really important part of our planning effort, and that has included both general public input as well as more focused stakeholder input. And so you're seeing on the screen the key activities that we have been carrying out. A key part of that has been the Project Advisory Committee. That group represents transit agencies, partners in the region, as well as county and regional partners. Some of those are here tonight that I referenced at the beginning. They have really been guiding and making sure we're taking into the key needs and concerns from a more technical standpoint. They are going to continue to stay engaged through adoption of the plan later this year. You're here tonight. This is our second public meeting. Our last public meeting was held in person in Valdosta in early January. And we've also are having 2 rounds of public surveys to complement these public meetings. And so again, we'll come back to the public survey that we're launching at the end of this meeting. Those surveys are really our main tool to collect input from the public. And we've been working hard to get those out both virtually as well as in hard copy format. Amy and the team at SGRC has also been working to spread the word about the regional transit development plan through regional council meetings, for other planning efforts like comprehensive plan updates that are going on in the region, as well as through some of the other programs that SGRC implements, like supporting the area agency on aging programs, as well as senior setters and through the transit programs. And so we've been working really hard to make sure people are aware of the planning effort and have a way to participate. You're also seeing on the right some of the key implementation partners that we have met with early on, because they are important partners for implementing this plan or helping implement it, and or they're important coordination partners where the public transit needs to coordinate with transit provided through like the Georgia Department of Human Services or the Department of Community Health. All right, so through all this input, we are not synthesizing here every single input. We have lots of documentation of the public input that we've done, and some of that's on the website now. We're working to get a couple other summaries up. But you are seeing some of the key themes that have arisen through both the stakeholder and public input. One of those is the access to transit throughout the region and making it really a seamless access. So whether you're in a more urban area like Valdosta or in some of the more rural areas of the region, that it's really seamless to access, and you can access transit anywhere in the region. We've heard about the importance of focusing mobility options on those who are dependent on public transit, those who may not be able to drive either because they're too young or they're aging or they have a health condition, variety of reasons. And we know, of course, that the region is aging like much of our country. And so the aging population is a specific focus area, and making sure that that group of our population, especially as we continue to trend older, will be really important, getting to essential services like medical, grocery shopping, other daily. And the last couple of things, access to jobs, transit plays a really important role of that. So you'll hear a little bit more about some of the alternatives we're looking on related to jobs access and facilitating economic opportunity. Billy will talk to that. And then one thing that I would say is somewhat unique to this region is just we've heard a lot from you all about really being prepared for the future from both a technology standpoint and from a just changing trends. So we know that y'all have had some increasing or more frequent storms in southern Georgia. And so how does transit play into that? How do we make sure our transit system is supportive and helps the region be more resilient, as well as adaptable to technology? So those are some key takeaways from the engagement, and that we have been really taking that to heart as we move forward. And on the next slide, we'll focus on one of the outcomes from our first round of engagement, which is our vision and goals. So the vision and goals really set the framework for the implementation program. This is a long range plan. We're looking out to 2050. We're aligning with your MPO transportation plan, which is also looking out to 2050. So 25 years out, this vision and goals sets a framework for. There's several inputs that have shaped it. You're seeing those on the screen. Your current plan, the statewide transit plan that I referenced earlier, and then the public and stakeholder input has really been a key driver. So on the screen, you're seeing these draft statements. The item in red is the vision statement, which is meant to be concise, short, cover the overall picture, and then you're seeing the goals that we've outlined below that. I'll probably pause for a minute and just let y'all look at this. We're not asking for feedback on the meeting. If you have any initial reaction, please feel free to put that in the chat. But we are asking about both of these statements in the survey that we're launching today. So you'll have an opportunity to provide more feedback if you have thoughts on that. maybe I'll pause for a minute. This is a key part. It ties back to the priorities and how we're prioritizing some of the alternatives and recommendations that Billy will go through later. Okay. So that I am done talking for a little bit. I want to pause and see if anyone has a question. Please feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. Otherwise, like I said, we've got a lot to cover, and I'll hand it over to my colleague Ansley to cover some of the analysis we've been doing today.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda. All right, so I'm going to dive into share a little bit about transit in the region today, as well as what we've uncovered as some key needs, both through technical analysis and through all of the public input and stakeholder input that Amanda was speaking to. I did want to note that there's an existing conditions document and needs assessment document posted on our public website. So we're going to go over just some key highlights in this meeting. We don't have time to go through those, everything from those documents. They're pretty lengthy, but we encourage you to visit the website to learn more about it if there's a topic that we touch on today that you want to learn more about. So just to get started, laying out where is transit today. This map highlights all of the counties with a red hash mark that are currently participating in SGRC Transit's regional program. Rural transit service is provided in 15 of the 18 counties today. However, Clinch, Lanier, and Eccles County, although they don't currently participate, have agreed to join the regional program starting this July. So that's very exciting that all counties in this region will soon be served. There's one other transit service that operates within the urban city limits of Valdosta On Demand. So you'll hear us talk about those often today. Valdosta On Demand is operated by VIA, so you might hear us kind of interchangeably speaking about Valdosta On Demand or VIA. So I wanted to give some context about our research into where are people needing to go with transit. I'm going to show two maps here. One is about travel patterns within the Southern Georgia, the 18 county region. And our next map will look at travel patterns to areas surrounding the region. These aren't just transit patterns, but rather all vehicle trips. There's a transportation analytics platform called INRIX that this data is sourced from, that we are able to really get a sense of where people are going daily. What does that look like? And the numbers represent the number of trips. And with Pierce and Ware County, you see higher numbers. That's really showing us that there's a lot of inter-county travel as people go back and forth, maybe to jobs or different services that might not be available in one area, but people often cross over into their neighboring county. So that's the highest trip pattern. The counties nearby Lowndes, like Brooks and Cook, all have a lot of travel into Lowndes as well. More job opportunities there. Up in the north, you also see a lot of trips into Tift County. So these things are just really helpful as we plan for transit and where people are going. Like I said, we also looked at areas surrounding the region that people need access to. And the locations that had some of the greatest amount of trip rates were actually from Lowndes County down to Hamilton County in Florida. The next highest was Tift County west over into Worth County. And then Brantley County on our eastern side of the region over east into Glenn County. So you're seeing lots of arrows. These are highlighting kind of the top 10 different rates of trips that are going on in different areas. So there's a table that summarizes all of this in the existing conditions report that I alluded to earlier. We also heard from the public about where people need access to. So people gave us input through our last survey on specific places around the region that are important, specifically where they'd like to go via transit, such as Walmart, places like grocery stores, drugstores, doctors' offices, libraries, etc. We heard about places within the region, as well as outside of the region. We're hearing a lot about North Florida, Jacksonville, Orlando, Gainesville, all of those came up. Also some surrounding areas in Georgia, such as Brunswick and Savannah, we've heard those a couple times. So next I'm going to highlight a little bit about what the data shows us on populations who need transit. Transit propensity is a way of looking at population groups that are most likely to depend on transit. We've used several different socioeconomic factors that are summarized at the bottom of the slide. Things like zero-car households and individuals with disabilities, seniors. Amanda spoke to earlier, the aging population is a really big factor. Then low-income individuals, minorities, limited English proficiency, those that may not speak English as their first language, and youth are some of the populations that tend to have higher needs for transit. So in this map, the areas that show in the darker shades of teal mean that there's a higher concentration of these populations. So that indicates that there's likely a higher need for transit in the areas that show up in the darker shades. To summarize this on a county level, we have the top 5 counties in terms of their transit need are Turner, Brooks, Clinch, Atkinson, and Charlton counties. We've also done some analysis to come up with the rural transit demand, which takes into account all of these different population groups I just spoke to and uses a methodology from the Transportation Research Board. It's a tried and true methodology that the Federal Transit Administration suggests using when you're planning for rural transit. So this is specifically thinking about rural transit like the service that SGRC Transit provides. We did not look at the demand for the urbanized area that's covered by Valdosta On Demand. The unmet demand currently means of all the trips that were provided last year by SGRC Transit, which was about 92,000, sorry, that was in 2023. There were still about 210,000 trips that were not served, and that just goes to show that there's still a great need for more resources to be put towards transit, and this means that transit might not operate at the times when people need it, or it could be that there's just a lack of awareness. There's a lot of reasons why that demand is not currently being met. So that's something Billy will dive into a little bit more when we get into alternatives about what are some ways we can meet that demand. And we're looking out in this plan all the way out to 2050. So we have a demand number calculated for 2050 as well. So that'll help us really tailor our implementation plan to scale up our resources to serve that demand in the future. So 2 more analyses I'm going to cover are population density and transit destination concentration. So on this map here, this is a lot to take in, but really what I'm showing here, both the results of our transit density analysis that looks at households per acre as well as jobs per acre and comes up with a combined transit supportive density number. And we used a methodology that helped us categorize areas based on what types of transit might be compatible based on the levels of density we're currently seeing. In Valdosta, the purple shaded areas are the most dense in terms of both households and jobs. And these areas do show that they may be able to support a cost-effective fixed route bus service. So Billy's going to speak to that a little bit more coming up here. Today, the service in Valdosta is not fixed route. It's just an on-demand microtransit service that, while it's more flexible, it doesn't have set destinations or set schedules. And looking at all the destinations on this map, as well as locations that could be important for where people need their trips to start, such as at multifamily housing properties, we start to see that there may be a pattern of where a fixed route service might help people on their daily needs get from place A to place B. We've done the same type of analysis for other population centers outside of Valdosta as well. We're highlighting just a couple other places where there is a level of density that might support a type of service beyond the rural transit program that currently exists. Tifton and Waycross mainly are showing up in this blue range, which blue represents a microtransit service, which is similar to what Valdosta On Demand. It is a microtransit service. So Billy will also be sharing a little bit more about how that might be recommended in these areas. And similarly, as I was speaking to, we also highlight several different types of destinations and origin spots in these communities, so that could help us think about how to structure a service to best serve those needs. Lastly, I wanted to highlight all of the work that we've done to date really led us to identify buckets of needs and helped us both marry the public and stakeholder input with the analysis that I've shared today to really think about these 5 key areas: essential services, making sure that transit gets people to places like medical appointments, grocery shopping, other daily places, really focusing on the needs of seniors and making sure the service is affordable to those who need it. Economic opportunities, Amanda mentioned this earlier, that getting people to jobs is a really key part of this plan. Transit operation enhancements, that's something Billy will be speaking to in depth in a few moments here, but things like making sure there's enough drivers to serve people, so they don't have to have long wait times and things like that. Context sensitive transit solutions, that really has to do with land use and density. So what I was just speaking about in some of our more dense areas, like in Valdosta, a fixed route bus could be more appropriate, whereas a less dense area, it wouldn't be cost effective to put that type of service in place. And less emergency management and preparedness. As Amanda highlighted earlier, we've been hearing a lot about people wanting to make sure that transit responds to the needs of, as the weather patterns continue to change, making sure that we're able to respond in the case of extreme events. So with that, I will pass it over to Billy unless anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Ansley. Any questions for Ansley before I get started? I'll take that as a no, and I'll move on. And so I'm going to discuss sort of the future. We looked at sort of what's happened past and existing conditions and some of the situations we've evaluated to help identify needs. But really want to look at the future now, and this is where we need most of your input. And so if you have ideas for some of the things that we share, please let us know. And you can go through the chat, and we'll have some polling that we'll do to sort of get your opinions on some of these ideas. Just as a refresher, this was already mentioned by Amanda and Ansley, but there are 2 existing services in the region. The SGRC Demand Response Rural Transit Service, which serves most of the rural areas, or all the rural areas in the 15-county area currently, and the 18-county area soon. And the way that works is you call to schedule a next day service. And so you have to have 24-hour advance notice. You call them, and then they'll provide services if they have a van available for that. And they work Monday through Friday during general business hours. The Valdosta On Demand, the VIA service, is more like a van, and that's more like an Uber Lyft kind of service, where you have an app on a phone, and you request a ride, and you provide your location, and they'll let you know when they come get you and deliver you for that ride. And that's a little bit longer hours based on their demand. So they go early in the morning, all the way to 9 o'clock at night, but not on weekends. So next slide. And so possible future transit options, different modes, are commuter vans, and there's definitely parts around Georgia and other areas, and even private organizations that use commuter vans to take workers to employment centers. And that could be either for one particular employment center, like going from a park and ride lot to a major employment location, or it could be to a high employment area. There's also seasonal special event circulator shuttle buses, and this would be like for festivals or holidays, something around maybe some of the downtown areas that would help people move around in some of those recreational entertainment times. And then there's a fixed route bus idea, and we don't have a fixed route bus system currently operating in this area, but as Ansley pointed, there's certainly some demand for that, and we could look at that option moving forward. Next slide. And so there'll be 3 different categories of alternatives. There's transit service expansion, and this is going to be new geographic service, so providing service in areas where there doesn't already exist, or a different mode, and that would include things like adding a fixed route bus system or new microtransit in different areas that don't currently have it. And there's transit service enhancements. That would be things that we currently already have in the region, but we want to do a little bit better with some of the way it operates, whether that's efficiency or service, one of those things. And administrative tools and guides go along with that. Just making sure that we are doing things to operate this this transit service, efficiently. Okay, next. So first, we'll talk about transit service expansion ideas, and there are really 6 that we want to get your perspective on, and we'll ask you to rank these in a minute. I'm going to go through each one of those individually. But just a quick list. Expand the rural to 18 counties, and as you've already heard, that's already done. Microtransit in non-urban areas, and so that's taking microtransit to areas out in Valdosta, other places. Adding a special event seasonal service, adding a commuter van pool service, having external access outside the region, so using public transit to get to places outside of the 18-county area, and then maybe applying a fixed route bus service in Valdosta where the density supports that. So I'll go through each of these quickly individually, and then you'll get a chance to rank them. So first of all, the first one is already done, so it's not really like the future. The future started in February of 2025 when all of these counties voted to participate in the regional transit. So check that off the list. I'm not sure that makes it a high priority or low priority, but it's done, so we can move on. So really, the next 2, a microtransit, is exploring the microtransit service, which I said similar to Uber, Lyft, and VIA, which is already operation in Valdosta in non-urban towns, and specifically we're looking at Tifton and Waycross. But if you're from Douglas and you think that maybe that would be a location that could be applied successfully there, we'd like to get your opinion on that, and maybe you can add that to the chat if you think that's a good thing. There's special event seasonal circulators, explore the viability of circulators and trolleys during special events or season. And got a picture of the holidays. I think that was in Albany, or maybe it was in Tipton, but something like that where you have something that's maybe not running year round, but it's maybe targeted for special events. Next slide. And then adding commuter van pools. And this map that you see shows sort of a density of employment clusters throughout the region. And they generally fall within the county seat cities that you see highlighted in those red areas where those clusters are. And those could be targets for commuter van pools. And the way that would work is that there would be some sort of organization event to identify where locations of potential employees live that would want to participate in a service to a location that could be a single manufacturing facility or a large employer, maybe even a hospital, some of those lines, or it could be a cluster, like a manufacturing complex, like there's several around the region that have groups of large employers all together. And so it could be, organizing that maybe through a park and ride lot, or maybe through picking up people individually that are in the same general area and taking them to those job opportunities. All right, next. And external access, this would be, and we saw some of this in some of the public input, is that they're looking for ways to get to other parts of the region that are outside the 18 county area, but fairly close proximity. In particular, Brantley and Charlton County on the east side, we know there's quite a bit of travel from Brantley going to Glenn County and from Charlton going to Jacksonville, because it really is the closest city which might have really good medical care or other types of services that people want to access. There's also some interest in Savannah, access to that. We didn't see a lot for Macon Atlanta, but we'd like to know if that's something that you're interested in. And then also to Tallahassee, and that's pretty close city for some of those in that southwestern corner of the region. Next. And then in Valdosta, expanding to a fixed route service. And if we looked at the density and the map that Ansley showed, there's sort of like a north-south connector. I think that's North Ashley Street, which sort of connects the historic district of downtown up through the hospital, Valdosta State University, and the shopping areas, the Walmart, along with some really densely populated areas. And then maybe an east-west route that could occur that connects sort of the developments around I-75 to downtown and some of the other developments just east of downtown. So we're thinking along the lines that there's definitely potential to support that with the clusters that we see. But I want to know, you get your feedback. And this doesn't have to be like a gigantic bus. This could be, a smaller, medium-sized bus that's larger than a van, but enough to support whatever we think the ridership would be. All right, next. And so this is your opportunity to use your app that I think that you connected to in the beginning. We should have a question, this question up there. We rank the transit expansion alternatives by priority. And these are not in the order that we think. And so just go ahead and slide them around, or how that works, and define the priority that you think meets what you believe needs to be the future of the transit for the region. And we'll give you just a couple minutes to do that. And if anybody has any questions about that, let me know. Feel free to chime in, unmute yourself while we're waiting for this.
I'll just
Okay.
note that I think someone maybe joined, one or two people joined midway. So if you haven't used Menti before, you could just type it into your browser, use it on your phone, and then there's the code for our particular meeting. It's also at the top of the slide. And go ahead, Billy.
Okay. We'll see as the results start coming in. Starting to see the commuter van pool service rising to the top and access to locations outside of the Southern Georgia region. And that sort of aligns with what we've seen from some of the other public meetings, that there's an interest in making sure the economic vitality of this region continues to grow, and allowing public transit to support those endeavors. It seems to slow down, so we'll move on. And some of these questions we're going to ask now, if you want to answer this, please answer in the chat. We're not going to use the Menti, I don't think, to do that. So if you can think of any specific employers or work locations that could benefit from having a commuter van service, let us know. Put that in the chat if you think so there's some that would fit that design. Also, are the locations outside of the Southern Georgia region that you would like access via transit? And so this would be things like we talked about with going to work in the Brunswick area, or going to services available in Jacksonville, or to one of the other cities around the area. Try and be specific, or even describe sort of the situation that you might see that would fit. All right, and so for Valdosta, for those of you in Valdosta, if fixed route service, such as a bus with set stops, is implemented in Valdosta, what areas of town or specific locations should be considered? I mentioned a few when I introduced that, but we'd like your opinion on some of those high traffic locations that you think would be attractive to have a fixed route connection to.
Billy, I was going to note there's a comment in the chat about to the first question. Can you think of any specific employers or work locations that could benefit from having a commuter van service?
Oh, I see that. Yeah, Pilgrim's Pride. Yeah, okay, in Coffee County. And so, yeah, it sounds like they may already have their own transportation system. And so that's something that could be working a partnership, maybe with SGRC, looking into some of those type of services, and maybe be shared. Maybe there's some areas that they can't get to that SGRC might be able to. It would provide a good way to access a new labor force for that. All right. So we're going to move on to the other two transit alternative topics, which are the enhancements of existing services and administrative tools and guidance. And again, we'll have some 6 different ideas or improvements that we'd like you to rank as we go through them. More vehicles and drivers, I think it's an obvious one. It's just expanding the capabilities that we have with more vehicles. Increased service hours, so that's changing maybe to the nights and weekends. Evaluating trip scheduling or minor methods, and so right now, phone or based for SGRC and an app for the VIA. Maybe there's some other methods that could be implemented. Updating the technology, evaluating the fares, whether they're fair enough, and improving door-to-door service. In particular for the VIA, sometimes they ask riders to move to the closest major intersection where they are picked up there. And so that could be improved possibly to make it more door-to-door. And then increase the marketing of transit services. And we know that there's potential for a lot of people may not even know some of these transit services exist. So let me talk about each one of these real quickly, and then we'll get a chance to vote on it. So more vehicles and drivers, expand the fleet of vehicles and drivers operating the region to better meet current and future demand. As Ansley pointed out, we feel pretty strongly that there's a large demand for transit throughout the region. And even though there's been 90 to 100,000 trips per year served by SGRC, we think that there's maybe up to double or even triple that amount moving forward. And so the easy answer to that is it's working. Let's just get more vehicles and drivers in the field to serve those populations that need it. Increase the service hours. And so there may be people that could use transit, but the service hours don't really work for them. And so opportunities for going into the evenings or weekends are really targeting maybe around some of the manufacturing shift hours, like the second and third shifts, or even the Valdosta State student needs within the VIA operating area. Next. And we talked about evaluating, updating trip scheduling and reminder methods. They could be phone, web app, improving driver and passenger communication. So if the driver's running late or the passenger is trying to correct their location about where the pickup is, improving those communications. There's a lot of different technologies out there, and just making sure that SGRC is up to date with those that are effective for their particular riders that they have demanding service or requesting service. Evaluating fares, we know that the fares are actually fairly reasonable. I think it's like $3 for SGRC and $2 for VIA, with maybe some add-ons based on distance and the number of people. But if you're living in, say, in Clinch County, and you want to go 30 miles to a doctor's appointment in Valdosta, then that could add up. And so I want to make sure looking at those fares makes sense for those populations that need it the most. Door-to-door service, improving the pickup and drop-off locations, particularly in difficult weather. There is an opportunity for VIA users to select, where to be picked up if they want door-to-door service. But a lot of times they default to asking people to walk somewhere. Marketing of the transit service. I think there's a lot of people. We even found people, I think, in some of the other meetings that had never heard that there was transit service exist in the region. And that's partly because of marketing, and they could be improved to make sure that those people that need it really understand that there's a service available to them. All right, and so here's your opportunity to once again rank some of these, or if you have some other ideas, put them in the chat, and or if you want to come up and go unmute and ask a question or two, we'd be willing to do that as well. So let's see if you can use the Menti app to identify how you would like to prioritize those 6 different options. More vehicles, increased service hours, evaluating the trip scheduling and reminder methods, evaluating the fares, the door-to-door service, and increasing the marketing. I have to say, we didn't put these in any particular order. And so let's see what you have. All right, so we've got one in marketing, move to the top, increasing the service hours. Service hours again, still high. We'll give it just a couple more seconds here. All right, I think that's what we got. So increasing the service hours was mentioned. I think that's it's interesting to see that. And so nights and weekends, we can take a look and see what it would take to sort of implement that, or the time frame for doing that. Marketing, not surprised that that's at the top. Again, I think a lot of people really don't even know that the service exists or how to access it. And it's good. All right, so a few more questions on these topics, so that get your input. On a typical weekday, during what times of day would it be most useful for you to have transit service available? And that's either for SGRC, VIA, or one of the other future modes. So we're looking at, I think you're using your Menti app again, and it's early morning, which would be 6 to 10 a.m., midday, afternoon, evening, late night, or you would not use public transit on a weekday. So this is really just for weekday. And let's see if you can use the app to select which of those you think would be the most useful. So it's all even at this point. All times of day. Even 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Okay, maybe not. Okay, so it's shifted to certainly the typical hours, but there is some interest in making sure that there's some sort of 24-hour service available, and I think that's good. Or earlier morning is now showing there. That's good. Okay, another question for you. On a typical weekend, what day would be most useful for you to have transit service? And that's for any of the transit services. Saturday, Sunday, or you would not use public transit on a weekend. So I guess this really is a battle between Saturday and Sunday.
And Billy, while we're waiting, there was an additional comment related to the last question about hours of service.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, we have a lot of dialysis client transportation calls for early morning before 6 a.m. That's yeah, that's a specific client that has a need that we might be able to address that. So Saturday wins on the battle between Saturday and Sunday, and so I think that makes sense. There's a lot of activities going on Saturday around that people would like to travel to, even some work trips. Another question for you: what is the best method for you to schedule, cancel, and get updates about transit routes? Is it by phone, through a website, text messaging, a smartphone app, which is what VIA uses, or something other? And you can add another idea to chat on that. And there's support for all of the different possibilities. Phone call and text message. Okay. All right, thank you for that. And what is the best way to get word out about transit service? This is looking at the marketing. And so select all that you think apply. And so is it going to the city, putting it on the city and county regional commission websites, putting it on social media, information that's directly mailed to residents, information at medical facilities and doctor's offices, information at schools and daycare facilities, advertisements on buses, or in this case is vans, and television or radio public service announcements, and information in grocery stores, senior centers, churches, and faith-based facilities, restaurants, and bars. And so everybody got a vote. It looks like social media, information in medical facilities and doctor's offices, and the typical destination kind of things would be at the grocery stores. Those are the three that stood out, but also for other places. And so I think really the message is that getting the message out any way possible is a good thing. All right, next. Is there anything else that any of you would like to share with us as we plan for the future of transit in the region? You can do that with a chat comment, or if you want to go off mute and ask a question, you can do that. So we must have gotten everything right. So it's all there. No other great ideas.
Billy, I think this is also a good time. We have some wrap up comments, but if anyone has a question about anything we've covered, again, we're happy for you to unmute, or if you want to put it in the chat, now would be a great time to ask.
Okay, well, I think they've gone silent on us, Amanda, so I'll turn it over to you for the next steps.
Thursday night, tough crowd. We want to get out on time, and if we can do it a couple minutes early, that works. So it's really important to us that y'all stay engaged. If you're listening live or watching the recording, we do have our public input period. We're launching that tonight with tonight's meeting. The main way we are collecting input is through the public survey. Ansley just shared, if you're in the live meeting, in the chat, the link to that. It is on the website. You're seeing the QR code. You can get to the survey that way. We are working with Amy and the team at SGRC to also get hard copies out. At minimum, you can find them at the SGRC offices, but if you know folks or a group that needs hard copies, like senior centers or a group you work with, we will work with you to get those there. So the next 3 weeks are really key. Please help us get the word out and share information about the plan, especially for folks that do rely on transit for different needs. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be working on distilling all the information we've collected through our stakeholders' input to date, the feedback we're getting from y'all tonight through the public survey into a recommendation and draft plan. We will be working closely with SGRC and our project study team partners, which include key implementation partners like Georgia Department of Transportation and City of Valdosta, some of the private providers that help implement the transit in both Valdosta and the region to get that plan in good shape. And then again, we'll be coming back for our final public input period, and the goal right now is August. And then again, the regional council will be asking to adopt the plan in September. You go to the website, we've got project information up there, ways to get in touch with us. If you have any questions, you can submit them that way. We are happy to hear from you. If there's a way we can better get the word out to the community, certainly let us know. With that, I will pause and let Amy end with any final remarks she may want to add. And I think we can stay on till 7 if there are any questions as well.
Yeah, just want to thank you guys for all the wonderful presentation, all the work that you've put into this plan. It's a lot of detailed analyses and a lot of great recommendations. So we appreciate it, and we appreciate the way that you all have broken it down for our public to be able to understand what we're doing and to be able to participate. So we really are looking forward to their participation. Also, we'll be sharing this recording on social media. And some questions as well when we advertise. So we're hoping to get feedback, even if it's in, comments. We'll take those too. So, and once again, thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Amy. Like we said, we'll stay on if anyone wants to hang on and ask a question. We're happy to take it. And thank you, Scott, for the additional comments.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.